And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. On today's episode, I just want to talk about something that's kind of been on the back of my mind a little bit, and that's just talking about like the healthy Pokemon hobby versus the unhealthy Pokemon hobby. And I think there was a while that for a lot of people in this hobby, it was really unhealthy. And what I mean by that is just, like prices for everything going crazy, things really not being sustainable price wise. I think a lot of people more or less are getting burned out in this hobby. And anytime people are getting burned out in this hobby, I think that is an extremely unhealthy thing. But I think luckily we're starting to move away from that. And I think there's a lot of little things that are kind of happening right now to make that really become true, or at least something we're all seeing happen. Like a couple things. One, grading turnaround times, grading costs were going absolutely stupid, right? Meaning PSA was more or less shut down. The only options were CGC, even Beckett. And, we don't ever talk about Beckett because one, a lot of people don't submit through Beckett because I call it the Pony Express. You have to be a little crazy to want to submit to Beckett unless you are really going to go after like black label cards. So it wasn't really ever an option for a lot of people. So really it was only Beckett. And then so many people entered this hobby and so many people were left with, very few options. So CGC became such a huge option for a lot of people. And I still to this day say, I think CGC had a huge opportunity to really do something kind of special. And for whatever reason, maybe that didn't happen, but that's fine. But all that was unhealthy for this hobby. Trust me, to not be able to grade your cards in any sort of turnaround time that makes sense, because I've talked about it before and many people have talked about it, and a million you guys do the same thing. One of the beautiful things about, grading cards is if you are not just 100% a collector, if you do have a little bit of that, flipper mentality in you where you're going to grade cards, sell those cards off, at least sell the cards that you don't want for your personal collection in order to maximize your collection goals. A lot of times you have to free up cash, and grading cards is a great way to do that. And a lot of people weren't able to do that. But more importantly, I think why we are moving from a very unhealthy hobby to a very healthy hobby is one of the parts of this hobby that was a little unhealthy for a decent amount of 2020, a large like majority of the beginning of 2021, was a lot of people were just re-entering this hobby or rediscovering Pokemon. And for whatever the reason may be, maybe they rediscovered it because it was just that right time in their life. Maybe, they were at home during the pandemic. Maybe they got in through Logan Paul. Maybe they just, for whatever reason, rediscovered their childhood collection in their closet and said, hey, how's this Pokemon hobby thing going? And then they, went down the rabbit hole. So at the very beginning of that unhealthy part is, I think, just a lot of people were not super familiar with the market, or it takes a little bit of a learning curve to understand the market. And even for parts of 2020, early 2021, the market was such an irrational market that I didn't care how much experience you had in this hobby. The irrationality of that market was very difficult to navigate, even for people that have been in this hobby for a long time. Shout out to Nick Old School Pokemon. He talks about one of the things when he came back at the height of the, Pokemon craze, when he came back from his job, what really made him start to take that giant step to do Pokemon full time. He talks about coming back from his job where he was working on big ships, I should say. And when he got back, one of the hardest things he had to do when he got back from his job was he had to relearn the entire market. And think about a guy like Nick Old School Pokemon, somebody who has some of the most, like Pokemon knowledge, real true understanding of this market. And listen, anybody who's grinding, 99-cent cards, that guy has his ear to the grindstone. But the fact even somebody like him, at the boom of booms, he had to relearn this market. I could only imagine people that enter this hobby for the first time, how incredibly, incredibly difficult that must have been. It must have been one of the most daunting things for anybody to ever do. But I don't think, maybe at the time that could have been like a strong negative for a lot of people in order to learn that hobby. And really, I think a lot of people made some, poor mistakes. And I would say a lot of those mistakes they made were financially, right? Like maybe they overpaid for cards or they didn't understand like true understand true rarity and scarcity, or maybe they were still a little unfamiliar with like true card conditions, what's the difference between a PSA 8 or PSA 9, or what does it really truly take to get like that gem mint grade, to really get that 10, like to really understand card grading and card condition, like what what really takes it to get it to that high level, and or just like understanding, some cards just inherently out of the factory are very poor. All these little nuances which you pick up over time, like none of these things can you pick up just instantly. Like no one could be an expert grader unless you've graded cards in the past. Nobody could truly understand sets unless you've researched those sets. Nobody could understand print runs, or nobody could really truly understand print runs, I should say. But there are resources out there where a lot of smart people in this hobby have really done the numbers and they've tried to take their best guesses of what print runs can be. And nobody will never know 100%. But again, that when you really go down the rabbit hole, you could start to like pull data from all like different places. So then, you start to understand like the difference between rarity, what's the difference between scarcity, and then, you know, maybe your English market or your Japanese market, or you going for easy vintage, or you going like Watsy, base set jungle fossil, and then, are you going to start going to the Neos and the gyms, and then go to your e-readers, and then your expeditions and your Aquapolises and your Sky Ridges, and then go to your Nintendo sets, and then say, well, okay, now we're gonna go to, like the platinums and the heart gold soul silver timelines, and then your black and whites, and then your XYs and your sun and moon and your sword and shield, and then, oh, let's do all these promos in between, and let's go even one step further, and let's start going after trophy cards, and let's go after like one-off Japanese promos and how are they released, and all these like little teeny baby nuances, right? Like you can spend a week learning about one set, and sometimes you can spend hours trying to just research one card in this hobby, and like how was this card released? Where did it come from? Like little things, or let's just say you start going after like theme decks, or what's in the theme deck, or understanding like different sets, or you go after your gold stars, or you're going after your primes, or whatever you're going after, right? Like to do all that at one time is impossible. It's just impossible. There's no way anybody can do that all at once. All that will take time, but that's the thing. And that's the beautiful thing about this hobby. This hobby for me, and for a lot of people like you guys out there, this hobby is not going anywhere. It's not just, it's not a fly by the night type thing. But that's the thing. A lot of this is old information. It's just about discovering this information. And while this information might be readily available and a lot of people might know it, if maybe a lot of people are just discovering this for themselves the first time, but this is all that stuff. It just this time thing. And I've talked about it before. A lot of other people have talked about this. Pokemon is not a sprint. Like it is, if Pokemon was an athletic competition, Pokemon is not the 100-yard dash. Pokemon is the marathon. And not only is it the marathon, it's the marathon of marathons, It is the longest race you could possibly do. But that's why when I say Pokemon going from unhealthy to healthy, where the people that are sticking around in this hobby, at least the people that I could say I'm interacting with, again, we've talked about it before on this channel, and other people have talked about the same thing. Me, you, the people watching this video, the people that will watch this video, the people that are subscribed to this channel, and honestly, the people that are probably subscribed to 90% of all the Pokemon YouTube channels. Of course, there are the big channels out there, but the majority of people really diving in and spending an hour or 2 hours listening to open-ended Pokemon podcast type conversations, they are in it. And those are the people that are going to learn so much and have moved from like this unhealthy part to this healthy part of the hobby. And as I'm starting to watch the hobby get back to like a good place, a comfortable place where, booster boxes at release are selling between, 95 and 110, 115. Like that is a nice spot to be in for this hobby. And why is it nice? Because they're not selling at $80 at release. They're still selling at like $100 or 95, which is healthy because it means the market's still strong enough to pull in $100 prices for booster boxes, but it's not so unhealthy where people are saying, okay, we're going to spend like 160 on a booster box and stuff like this. But then there are still like little parts of the hobby, which it's not like this streamlined thing either, right? Where everything is just going to one day, like somebody flipped a light switch and everything's going to go from this irrational market to everything just being perfect and rainbows and sunshines and dandelions and, all that like out of a, children's book. Like there's going to be hills and valleys. And like I can think of stuff right now that's going on. And I'm sure it's eating in a lot of people's brains right now. And, maybe like in the back of your mind, you're probably a little nervous, like something I've talked about relatively recently on this channel. Like the special delivery Charizard from Pokemon Center. We've all speculated there's going to be a million of those cards, right? Like there's no way Pokemon could be so foolish that they underprinted that card and then there's not going to just flood them out to people. Well, the first rounds of emails went out, and to my understanding, like, yeah, some people did get those codes. I did not get those codes, and I know there's a lot of people out there waiting to get those codes, and now this is a huge caveat. Pokemon said that they're gonna be rolling those codes out in batches, so maybe, again, we're so early on, right? So you look at, like, pre-order prices for those cards on eBay right now, and, like, what are they doing? Some of them are selling for, like, over $400, right? In between, like, probably, like, 200 to a couple $100 for, just confirmation pre-orders on a free card again. So there is definitely still the irrationality of this hobby, which is still very strong again. Like so we're in this weird limbo effect. And I think what the market's really doing is the market's doing like a hard rebalancing of itself. And why I say the market is doing a hard rebalance is because there are definitely some cards out there in graded, ungraded that are definitely retracing, but then there are some cards out there that are actually really holding their own, which again is pretty amazing. There is some sealed product out there that has really retraced in price, and then there's some sealed product that is still doing very good. But I think we're going to run into an issue now where a lot of the people that were getting into modern and stuff like that are just going to do all the things we've all talked about before. Like maybe prices will just be a little bit stagnant for a while. Things won't just rocket ship emoji to the moon like they were. But again, this is going from that unhealthy Pokemon hobby getting back to a healthy Pokemon hobby. And one of the things I've talked about on this channel so many times, and I've really like tried to beat this subject down, is in the future, I don't think people are going to look at Pokemon sets more or less. They're really going to look at like products, meaning what was the good product that sets released. They're not going to, but don't get me wrong, like sets will still matter. And one of the things Pokemon has the ability to do is they keep putting out banger after banger set. Pokemon's going to do a good thing with Lost Origins. I'm very interested to see how Lost Origin plays out because I've talked about it before and I know a lot of other people have. Lost Origins is looking like it's going to be a phenomenal set. It looks like it's going to have a fun chase to it. It's going to have some heavy hitters in it. It's going to be an all-around solid set. And especially for like what Sword and Shield is. Sword and Shield is working its way to just be this phenomenal time in Pokemon. And it's again, a lot of this is like perfect storms type stuff, like tons of demand. One of the things that was needed with that ton of demand was banger sets. And even the sets at the earlier blocks of Sun and Moon weren't great sets. So after this initial like hype wave has died down, Pokemon has done a good job of just rolling out like really, really good sets, whether it was through Evolving Skies or, Brilliant Stars, which I feel is the best set of Sword and Shield. That's why I love Cosmic Eclipse, introductory of character cards and stuff like that. Brilliant Stars made Pokemon opening fun again. And now Lost Origin is still going to have that same feel to it. And, there'll be weird sets in between, like how does Fusion Strike wind up in the history of Pokemon or Astral Radiance? Like, where do these sets fall? It will be interesting. I told you before, I didn't think Pokemon Go was a great set, but now Pokemon is going to come out with like a Hidden Fates 2 type field product, whatever that means. Celebrations, while Celebrations is becoming rarer and rarer, still had a great feel to it. It was a super fun set to open. But now we're going into like even these auxiliary products Pokemon's pumping out. Like, I think about like the Halloween cards. They've been all over people's feeds, right? Like the Halloween packs are going to be like a 3-card pack. First of all, the pack is actually pretty cool looking. Like, I'll give Pokemon that. But if that came out last year, that would have been, oh my God, just scalped to the moon, right? Which I think this product might still be scalped relatively hardcore. I think it's selling for like $15, but you get 43 card packs. But now you got like McDonald's promos coming out this month again. And so obviously we all remember what like McDonald's Pokemon promos did last year. Like, everybody felt bad about little Timmy out there who wasn't able to get his Happy Meals because all the, Pokemon collectors had gone in there and cleaned out all the McDonald's of their Pokemon cards. So I think, but if we start to see like all this stuff happen again, I don't think it's likely, but it's none of this is like out of the realm of impossible. But yeah, there's a couple things. And one of the things I'm still seeing though, which the market buying pressure is still stronger today than it was early 2020. There is definitely like areas of the hobby, people are still buying stuff at like crazy rates, still paying crazy prices for. But again, this is that part where, we are coming out of the irrational market, but it's still like little parts of this hobby is still very irrational. And I will be very curious in 6 months from now where we're standing. And one of the interesting things that's going to happen, which I think people are sort of alluding to it, but people aren't talking about it like full blown because nobody really knows. And one of those things is like PSA $18 graded. Yes, right now, 0 returns have been returned from PSA under $18, meaning we're still far away. They're going to get through all their backlog and stuff like that. But something important to keep in mind about PSA's backlog is their backlog doesn't go like throughout all 2021. No, like PSA, when they had that huge flood of cards, when they got like, more cards in a week, right when they went from like $10 to $20 and they bumped it up that tier. And then they just had that huge flood of cards were dropped on them. And like, we're getting close to that backlog being eaten up. Like, because when they closed, they stopped taking all submissions after that. So it's not like we have to make our way all the way through 2021. So if you have returns coming back very close to that wall where they close the doors, it'll be interesting to see. And then I don't think PSA got a ton of submissions through the $50 tier or the $30 tier, or at least anything close to what they were expecting to get. I think it was actually way less. So it brings up this like interesting thought of, okay, if they didn't get a lot, but I think they did get a lot through 18. Now, PSA has done an amazing job of like growing their capacity and at least growing their ability to grade cards and how many cards they can grade. And there's no denying that. And if you don't believe that, you can just go on PSA's Twitter account, or not Twitter account, Instagram account, and they show monthly how many cards they're grading for a month. They have drastically increased their grading ability and how fast they can grade cards. And I don't see a reason why their capacity to grade cards per month is going to get less. I just expect their capacity to continue to grow and the amount of cards they can grade per month. I don't expect that number to become less and less. So like next month they grade less cards and then less cards. No, I think they're going to keep gradually increasing their grading capacity. So if that's the case, right now they're saying like 6-month turnaround time for these $18 cards. And I think that is actually a possibility. Now, I don't know how many cards got submitted this month. It was probably a lot. But I'm very curious to see how the market reacts to getting all these cards back. The big caveat, or at least something to think about at $18, is while $18 is a drastic difference from the cards you can send at $18 versus the cards you can send at 30 or 50. But the thing about $18 is 18 is not 10. 10 opens up like the dam of Pokemon. Like somebody goes in there and they crank that giant valve and the dam opens up and then all those cards rush out at $10. $18 still holds back a ton of Pokemon cards for at least the short term. 18 is one of those like dollar amounts that you have to still be relatively hesitant at what you're going to send. So I'm curious at what comes back at 18. I think there was a lot of plays at 18, especially for modern cards. I think there's like the super easy plays, like like $18 is the day of Japanese stamp promos, just like in 2020, we saw every single Scream promo that ever existed got put in a slab, whether it was through PSA or CGC. Like there's going to be the obvious plays, which at $18, we're going to see all the stamp promos, just a stupid amount of like Japanese stamp promos, or, like your Vaporeon and your Jolteon and your Flareon premium collection ones, or all these like super obvious plays at $18, which I feel like just going to be a flood of those cards, but it still holds back. And then obviously like almost all the alternative arts, like, yes, there's still like, what is it? Santa Cobra or whatever. Can't even think of that alternative art. That's just like a crappy one. But for the majority of alternative arts, like $18 is a tier you could submit like most, if not all, alternative arts at. And a couple VMAX cards, depending on the set, like it opens up a lot, but it doesn't open up everything. Meaning your non-hollow rares from, Flash Fire and stuff. Maybe not Flash Fire. Like Ruby Sapphire. So, Ruby Sapphire's got a lot of cool cards. Like you got your Pikachus and your 2 Charmanders and your 2 Squirtles and your 2 Bulbasaurs and stuff like that. Like, and maybe $18 doesn't open up those, where like $10 does, but $18 opens up like most mint hollows of like every single WotC set, every single Nintendo set. I would even say with prices that we're seeing for like really good condition cards, because again, like PSA 9, PSA 10 for like all diamond and pearl hollows. Like I've been looking at some of these auctions for, like Stormfront regular hollows, not like chase cards, just regular hollows and PSA 10s, like what they're selling for, or especially even someone like the black and white hollows I'm seeing. Again, black and white is a whole nother conversation with actually able to find near mint cards, but I'm seeing these cards sell at relatively high prices because the population of these cards are so very low. So there's like no competition for these cards. But that's the thing, like those cards were never worth it to be sent away to be graded, even at $10 in the past. But because during this time, new markets have developed themselves within this hobby, like markets where there are plays. Now, this is the thing about $18. $18 allows a lot of those speculative plays, because I'll tell you right now, just regular hollows from diamond and pearl sets and black and white sets, even if the pop report is saying they're very low pop, that is a very speculative play, meaning your ability to recreate some of the gains some people have seen could be very tough, meaning who knows, right? Like these one-off cards we're selling that have a PSA 10 population of 3, but there's a million of these cards in people's collection. But now million cards versus truly near mint cards, like this is going to be fun. This is going to be interesting to see what the market's able to now shake out. And on the very high end of cards, I think 2020, 2021 was really good at shaking out a lot of the high end stuff. Meaning, I don't think that there's a lot of people sitting on like, you know, base set first edition, like Gem Mint 10 quality binders just sitting in somebody's collection waiting. While there might be a couple of them out there, I don't think there's a lot of them. But this very speculative stuff, like I talked about, your diamond and pearls and your black and white and some of your heart gold soul silver stuff, or even like call it any of the Nintendo hollows and stuff. I sent away a lot of them. I showed some of them on my submission. I still got a pile over there with a couple like speculative plays that I'm sending on my last submission that I submitted today, because I'm trying to like now stack out my submission so I don't get just blasted with all my grading fees up front, because I'm hoping that the cards that I sent like the first week are going to take longer than the next week, and next week, like I'm hoping I get spaced out so I could sell some of these cards, because grading fees are going to be a real thing for a lot of this stuff. And when you're talking people getting big grading fees back, I'll be very interested on how the market's ability to eat up all these cards, because there's at $18. This is the tricky thing about $18. $18 for most, if not all cards being submitted. Again, keep in mind, they have price caps of $199. It's not like you can submit tons of, you know, super high end cards at $18 and not expect to get upgrades or upcharges. Like if you really had that really expensive stuff, that's where you submit at like $30 or $50, and especially just in order to get those cards back, right? Like you're taking a real risk by sending a super expensive, like high end cards at $18. It's like kind of silly. You'd probably just send it at 30. But again, this area of the market, which has now grown to be very strong price wise, I'm very, very curious how the market's able to react to this. But more importantly, I'm curious how the market's going to be able to absorb all these cards. Now, I sent a lot of cards that are more niche. Wow, niche is a very questionable term to use, especially when I'm talking about niche cards that are set cards. Like one of the things about Pokemon that everyone probably already knows, and if you don't know, you need to know, like set cards are not rare, but cards that might not have been worth it to sell or, to grade in the past, they just rare through the graded form. And some of the cards I'm submitting, I'll be honest with you, like I'm worried that the market won't be there. Like in a hypothetical situation, these cards that I sent out, last week and 2 weeks ago, and the submission I did today, in a hypothetical world where I could get all these returns back tomorrow and I would be the first one to market, I think there is a ton of upside on all these cards if I was able to get them back tomorrow. Now, in 6 months from now or 8 months from now, or whenever these $18 fees or grading tiers come back, maybe I won't be sitting as pretty, because when you have a card that has very little competition, because it's maybe like one or only two available on the entire market, when you take a card that only has one or two available on the entire market and turn that into a card where now there's 10 or 15 or 20 of those same cards available on the market, and your competition in the pool of sellers, like just from 1 to 20 is an exponential increase, and that sort of card available, and be interesting to see how the market's able to absorb these, or if there is even a market for some of this stuff. Now, it'd be interesting to see where people wind up in all this. But that's one of the things like I get excited about for the hobby, because I'm curious to see how the market like plays out in the next couple months, because like I said, we are moving from that unhealthy to the healthy part of the hobby, but there's still going to be hills and valleys and stuff. And now who's to say in a couple months from now, PSA doesn't like open up $10 grading tiers and stuff. And one of the things that I'm still waiting on, which I don't know if it's really going to happen or not, is what the heck Pokemon's reprinting like schedule looks like. I have no freaking clue what Pokemon is reprinting at this point or what they're not reprinting. You know, we speculated really hard on like Evolving Skies reprint. I said personally, I thought the Evolving Skies reprint was going to be an absolute freaking dump, meaning they were just going to dump as much Evolving Skies on the market as the market could possibly hold, and they would just destroy all prices. From what I've heard from people, again, I don't have distributor agreements, but from what I've heard, it seems like this reprint is relatively small. And some of this stuff is already trickling out that people, even though it's supposed to be like end of August, it looks like a lot of this has been rolling out early. So that's fine. If maybe the Evolving Skies reprint wasn't as big, but what the heck is Pokemon printing? And don't just tell me they're, printing Bolton V boxes to the absolute moon, because that seems like the only thing that's available everywhere. So I don't know. It's interesting. I want to see how this market plays out. And things that I thought could have been like maybe a little bit of printed demand, like Pokemon Go, Pokemon Center ETBs and stuff. I know it took like to almost the end of July for a lot of people to get theirs. Like I know mine. I got my Pokemon Go ETBs last week, and it took a while to get there. And maybe they're gonna go to like the print to order type model. I don't know. There was a lot of speculation that maybe Pokemon could go more to the direct to consumer route and really like open up the floodgates of, Pokemon Center and stuff like that. But nothing is really like definitively saying that's what's happening. It's just this very interesting time we live in. But the thing about we're finding too is the products that are selling really well. The good sets, the good products are selling phenomenally well. The very poor products, the ones that have the crappy promos in it, or the worst, or not, maybe not worse, but like the poorer sets are not selling good at all. Like, it's interesting, right? Why is there so much supply of all this stuff? Or is it an equal supply of everything, but the demand for like your Evolving Skies and your Brilliant Stars is a demand for stuff like that just so much higher than everything else that is literally the only thing people are buying? Or like, I don't know. This is like one of those things. It's like, come on, Pokemon. Like, you could print products to sell it if you want. And one of the things you're going to hear people say all the time about Pokemon is Pokemon does not care about like the end consumer. Maybe that they don't really care about like what secondary market prices are doing. That Pokemon more or less cares about their bottom line, and their bottom line is making money. And that would make sense. But I would always challenge people to that and say, well, if that's the case, like, why didn't Pokemon print more Celebration UPCs? Like, they could have just put the printers on burr mode for those and just said, well, here's a product that costs $119 MSRP, and we will just sell all of these just to a make-believe amount, or the people really want Evolving Skies, let's reprint a ton of Evolving Skies, and it doesn't look like they're doing that. So I don't know, unless they are just so hyper focused on the next set, which is definitely a possibility. Because if you think about like the history of Pokemon, that's always what they do, right? They're always just hyper focused on pushing out products and going to the next set and stuff like that. But then you'll hear people make that argument, like I said earlier, like they're still a business. Their job is to make money. And it's like, which one is it? Is it, are they a company trying to make a ton of money and they don't care about secondary market prices? I don't know. I think it's a very interesting time in this hobby. So real quick, I'm gonna go look at the chat. I see a lot of familiar names in here. See Drew, Chief Keen, PTCG Vlogs, Card Movers, Dougie Fresh. Master Trainer Ryan, Tap Rock Bang. Good to see all you guys. But if you got any questions, feel free to write them. Let's see. Cheval says, you guys think PK will forgive CGC one day? That'll be a tough one. I think CGC is, I think they've had their day. I think we're going to move out of the CGC timeline pretty soon, but you never know. Master Trainer Ryan said, they didn't underprint those arts, but I don't think they printed them to the moon based on how fast they shut their registration down. Yeah, that's interesting. Be very curious to see how many of those special delivery charts when the very last promo code goes out. And if they did say, they said 12 weeks, they were going to be rolling out those codes. And from a strictly like product availability standpoint, it makes sense for them to roll out codes slowly, because you don't want just every single, Charizard promo going out all at the same time, because the website's going to crash, which the Pokemon Center website like crashes if you look at it wrong. Like, you just look at the website and it's like, I think you're a bot. Oh, sorry. Pokemon this website has crashed. And then you want to make sure that there's product available and stuff like that. So when people do buy their $20 or $25 worth of product, because they're going to want free shipping, you want there to actually be stuff on the website and everybody not just buying water bottles and t-shirts. And so that makes sense for the rollout, but it just doesn't appear like crazy. So Aiden M said, apparently the email had the same code for everyone that got one, so a lot of people's codes weren't valid. Yeah, that's true. So everyone who got that first wave of code, he's right. They were all the same exact code, which was actually kind of interesting. And Cheval said, special delivery Bidoof prices still holding strong. Yes, they are. They are holding strong, and no one who knew. Drew said the Japanese Umbreon VMAX alt art is holding strong. There's a lot of modern cards that are holding strong, which that is the definition of like a strong hobby. Or maybe you can make the argument that maybe some of these prices for some of these cards are holding strong because maybe people didn't get like fatigued financially, like in a macro sense. Maybe they just got wallet fatigued on trying to open up packs and trying to complete these sets. Because if you were new to the hobby and you came in with that mindset of, I'm going to be my own personal pack opener and I'm going to open packs and I'm going to complete sets that way, and then you hit that's talk about hitting a brick wall trying to do it that way. So you could have a lot of people just got wallet fatigued opening packs, and they said, you know what, I'm just going to a card that I really want, I'm just going to open up my wallet and buy that card, like, right. I'm just going to buy it. I'm not going to open packs. I'm not going to do any of that. Maybe. I don't think that's anything I've really ever heard anybody talking about, ever heard anybody use the phrase like wallet fatigue from opening packs, but it's definitely possible. I see Thrifty TCGs in the chat. Good to see. Derek Lavender, Head Pokemon. Good to see you guys. Yeah, people are asking when the EV Heroes reprint might be coming, which is interesting. Like VMAX Climax, EV Heroes, like really going against the grain on what everybody's battle cry was for Japanese, that Japanese sets don't usually get like massive reprints. But that's not really what's happening. Like a lot of Japanese sets got massive reprints, at least larger reprints than we have ever normally seen from like Japanese products, which is interesting. So that's to change a market too. Let's see. Master Trainer Ryan said it would probably cause too much trouble for McDonald's, but I really wish they would come out with some new artworks instead of the reprint of lame Pokemon. Yeah. You want to see really fun, original Pokemon artworks for McDonald's, go to like 2002 Japanese e-reader Pokemon cards and the McDonald's promo cards with like the Charmander and the Pikachu and the Bulbasaur with the McDonald's M and the Squirtle blow in the bubble. Like That is original McDonald's artwork, which was awesome artwork. Had the e-reader feel. They were all hollows. Yeah. So when McDonald's does do their own cards, like, it is awesome. Let's see. So the Money Well said, very important that backlog is going to be clear by the end of August, early September. Yeah. And what cards are still waiting in the backlog? We're going to see this weird time where there's just going to be a flood of graded cards on the market. Like, interesting. I don't know what people were grading at the end. At the beginning, I think people were just grading everything, but at the end, I don't know what people are grading. I think it's going to be interesting. I think if you wanted to pull some like mid-grade hollows, like, you might have your opportunity in the next coming months. So now this is the thing about recognizing timelines, recognizing periods. Like, we might go to a time where some of this graded stuff, this huge supply that's hit in the market, we could have like multiple things happen. One, prices we're going to see in the next couple months for graded cards could be at the lowest they'll ever be at, because supply will just be outweighing demand until that demand could, organically eat up the supply, which and in order for prices for some of that stuff to increase in the future, like, you'll need a lot of those cards to start getting locked away in people's PCs and stuff, and no longer be available on the market. But we could like come into this weird timeline where that is a possibility. So that could be one thing where it just takes a while for prices to start, ticking back up. Or we could run into a scenario where the supply of like some cards could be so massive that demand never is able to eat up all that supply. And there will just always be a supply of those cards on the market for now until like inevitability. And if that's the case, like, you could potentially see cards sort of stay at their rock bottom prices for a really long time. Or I guess there's always the third option too, where as fast as the cards hit the market, like, supply and demand is still strong and it just eats them up all right away. I think the third option is probably the least likely, where in 2020, end of 2020, early 2021, that was a situation where anything that hit the market, it didn't matter the grading company, it didn't matter the card. It just, as long as it was in two pieces of plastic, like, the market ate it up. So we'll see. Like, that's why I said, as somebody who enjoys watching the market, enjoys like studying it, learning about it, watching it, the next couple months is going to be, grab your popcorn and get ready, and let's see. Because if by January 2023, we're coming out of all this craziness and the market is still very strong, I think if that happens, then that will be a freaking fantastic indicator for the trajectory of where this hobby is going to go in the next year or two. And this is the thing, like, sure, historically in the long trend of this hobby, I see just like it constantly going up. But there is going to be like these weird hills and valleys, especially in the near term. I think a lot of people are going to have to navigate, and it's going to be all speculation from here to there of like how it's going to roll out or how it's going to look. But I'll be interested. Let's see. Thrifty TCG said she's looking for $100 or less as a price point for EV Heroes boxes. Hopefully it will get down to that. The Money Well said $30 tier stayed at 120 days when it was first introduced. They now changed it to 90 to 120 days. Yeah, so when I didn't do any at 30 actually. So Trainer DY Yellow said, I'm curious what economic instability will do to the hobby. We've yet to be through a significant economic event in this hobby. Well, I would say we were through one significant economic event that was just like the shutdowns and everything that happened there. But I think it had the reverse effect. I think you had a huge influx of money, especially on the lower end of collectors, or at least maybe not the low end of collectors, but the lower end of income earners, like stimulus check money and stuff like that was only eligible for people who was making $75,000 and less. So there was still a, a economic, a significant economic event that happened in this hobby. So now, as for rapid inflation and now drying up of money, so we're going from a period of time where everybody stopped going out, nobody was eating, nobody was going out to restaurants and movies and all that, you know, fun money was really just being saved up by people. So now we're going from an economic period where there was a surplus of cash, where now we are potentially going into the opposite end of that spectrum, an economic situation where money and funds are starting to be dried up. And one of the very first sources of funds that's really going to dry up for a lot of people is going to be like that fun money, I call it, or call it like entertainment money or whatever, where don't get me wrong, Pokemon is not, you know, food, shelter, clothing. It's none of those three. Like Pokemon is the definition of a luxury good. So will be interesting to see how the market's able to handle that. But I think there's a lot to talk about there. Let's see. Yeah, Drew said yeah, if you guys haven't smashed that like button, smash that like button. Appreciate it. Let's see. Chief Keen said $30 order coming out in 45 days on par with $50 tier is crazy. They probably didn't take enough at 30, which is why we ended up at 18. I think you're right. Because I think one of the things about $18 is $18 was something I didn't expect it. And I don't really know anybody out there who did expect it. Like to go from 30 to 18, $12 is a lot of money, like in the grading, range. And again, it's just all about like what cards are worth it to grade at certain prices and certain tiers. And $18 opens up a ton, at least for our hobby. Now, I'm not super familiar with sports and I'm not going to ever pretend like I am. So I don't know, like from 30 to 18, I'm sure somebody in the comments could let me know, like, does that open up a flood for sports cards as well? Let's see. I don't know why. Sometimes my chat will just jump all the way to the bottom. So if I missed your question, I'm sorry. Cheval said, Chief Keen, probably sports people are not sending as much as anticipated. Could we be closer to $15 than we think? Be interesting. See, for me though, the difference between 15 and 18 for me, for some of the cards I sent, I think are just very, yeah, it is what it is. Like, sure, $3 extra for a card. I didn't send 1,000 cards, but if you sent 1,000 cards and you paid $3 more, like, yeah, $3,000 when you start getting to a lot of cards, it starts to add up. But if you only sent like 100, you're talking $300, $200, $600. Like 15 to 18, I don't think is as drastic. Where a lot of people who sent at 30 and could have sent at 18, I think those people felt it a little bit more, where it was like, damn, $12, kind of a lot per card. Where at least I don't feel the 15 to 18 is as bad. Master Trainer Ryan says, I think they printed a lot of Evolving Skies, but are keeping it for other products. They still have a potential giant wave of ETBs coming soon. Yeah, I didn't really ever think about the ETBs, and be curious if we see Pokemon Center Evolving Skies ETBs. I know we saw like that one random drop, but I don't know if that was like an actual reprint or if that was just like back supply they were trying to push out, because it came the same day as like a Hidden Fates drop happened. Like there was Evolving Skies Pokemon Center ETBs and Hidden Fates ETBs dropped on the same day. So it definitely feels more like just back supply they had and not any sort of reprint. But who knows, if maybe we see a reprint of Pokemon Center ETBs, possibly. Could be, if you wanted to speculate, like maybe now's your time to sell the Pokemon Center ETBs if you think that is a possibility. Again, very risky. He could be onto something though. I don't know. Cheval says, from what he heard, CGC has slowed down. No more bulk in a week. Really curious to see what happens in the next months. Chris said, what set is going to sell the most? Brilliant Stars, Evolving Skies, or Lost Origins? I think Evolving Skies probably number one, Brilliant Stars number two, Lost Origins number three. I think that's how it's going to wind up. And I think when you talk about Sword and Shield block, those will be the three sets people talk about. And yeah, Celebrations being a specialty set, I think Celebrations is always in the conversation of best sets of Sword and Shield, but again, specialty set. But I think when all the dust settles and we look back on Sword and Shield 5 years from now or 10 years from now, I think those will be the sets that get brought up. You know, just like Sun and Moon, like what are the sets you talk about for Sun and Moon? You probably talk about Cosmic Eclipse, you probably talk about Team Up. And like those are probably for me my number one and number two. Cosmic Eclipse is personally my number one. A lot of people like Team Up as their number one, but then there's a lot of slept on sets too, like in Sun and Moon. Like I always talk about that end of that Sun and Moon block was just this pretty awesome time. A lot of fun sets, you know, from Lost Thunder and Unbroken Bonds and Unified Minds, and obviously Team Up and Cosmic Eclipse was like, that was a fun time. There were some good sets that came at the end of Sun and Moon. So Pokin Fun says Evolving Skies reprint date hasn't even got here yet, so I wouldn't count your chickens before they hatch. So it can still 100%, 1000% be coming. And Pokin Fun is 100% right. But it's just weird that so many people are starting to get their like delivery so early. Like P Football Pete didn't have any Evolving Skies for a while, and now I think his are down to 144 a box right now. I think he's selling. I think he's the cheapest on eBay right now. I think his Astral Radiance is $94 a box on eBay right now. I don't know what his other sets are at right now, but I still personally think we'll see Evolving Skies go a lot less than 140, but it's pretty interesting with the supply that's happening right now, still seeing prices at the 140 mark. Cheval says Pokemon just needs to put a Lugia Alt-Art in one of the last sets, and we're back to the moon, boys and girls. Alt-Arts is a funny thing. Like you could just make anything an Alt-Art, but yeah, Lugia would be a good one. Or you just have the last set have all good Alt-Arts, and you just obviously we already have, you know, Alt-Art Charizards and Rayquazas and Umbreons, but it's like, screw it, let's just do it again. Make more Alt-Arts of the same exact Pokemon, because that's one thing Pokemon is somehow really good at doing, is reprinting the same card. Let's see. Mason said maybe people just actually like Modern. Possibly. But not everyone loves every set in Modern. If that was the case, then he wouldn't have any Battle Styles ETBs. If that was the case, where I'd say, well, if people like to open Modern so much, how come you have all those Battle Styles ETBs, and why do you not have Evolving Skies ETBs? Because people don't like to open all Modern; they just open some Modern. So Rehorn Rumor said in October we get a set with Lugia V as main, which is confirmed. So it's only logical we get I don't Alt-Art. Okay, Alt-Art Lugia, possibly. Lugia is one of those weird cards where I don't think there's, now this is going on the highest end. I don't think there's as many Lugia fans out there than people might think. Now, this is the thing. Lugia is a fan favorite Pokemon easily. But in comparison to other Pokemon, while Lugia is a very strong contender for, you know, very sought after Pokemon, I don't think it's as strong as some Pokemon. Like, obviously, I don't think it's as strong as Charizard. I don't think it's as strong as like most evolutions, with the exception of like the less fan favorite ones. Rayquaza, I don't think people like Lugia as much. I think I think there's a lot of like legendary Pokemon that could probably squeak out Lugia. And I think people look at like the Lugia price for like Neo Genesis first edition, right? And crazy sales of 120, which is a super outlier, right? Like 120 for that card at the time. That's why everybody was talking about that card because it was crazy. And then sales started retrace until I want to say the last Lugia first edition from Neo Gen in a PSA 10. I think the last sale was like $28,000. So that's like closer to $100,000 drop in price than further away. Meaning, go from 120,000 to 28,000. That's a $92,000 price decrease in that card, which I think that says a lot about that character. But again, it Lugia isn't Trubbish. Does that make sense too? Like Lugia is still on the highest end of cards, but I don't think it's like the end all be all of people slept on favorite Pokemon. Like Lugia's had some awesome artworks, Like I love the Lugia legend, from Heart Gold Soul Silver, like one of the legend cards with the two pieces where like Lugia is going underwater, and I really like the claws underwater and like that look and that feel to it with those two cards. Like there's a lot of cool Lugia cards that exist, a lot of cool artworks out there. But I would be curious where it falls in the hierarchy of every single Pokemon. I would say for some people, it would be at the bottom of their top 10 list. So if I were to say, name your top 10 favorite Pokemon, I think it would probably fall closer to like number 7, number 8 on a lot of people's lists. That's just my personal opinion. But again, I'm super biased because my number 1 is Raichu. And that's probably like not even in people's top 10s, that means your top 10's wrong. Mine's right because Raichu is the best Pokemon. Just saying, no big deal. We can fight about it. See you guys outside. Lunchable Connoisseur. That's a pretty funny name. Lunchable Connoisseur. Loved Lunchables in elementary school. The pizza one. Couldn't pay me to eat a pizza Lunchables now that I'm older. It was like a cardboard disc with like a packet of sauce and cheese. Couldn't pay me to eat that now, but I would definitely eat some Lunchables back in the day when I was in elementary school. Said question. I have completed sets based through Gym Challenge and the Topps Chrome set 1 and 2. Oh, you completed Topps Chrome Series 2. That's cool. None are graded. Not sure if I should start grading or wait to see if it gets cheaper. So I think the answer to your question is, what's your plan with those? Is your plan to have those as, PC pieces, like just part of your personal collection, and you don't care about them being graded? Then I would say, yeah, just keep them bindered. And if you do want to sell them in the future, potentially, or you want to see what your grades can be, but you have no intention to like have to get rid of them, then I would say, yeah, wait. If anybody who wants to wait on their personal collection pieces to grade, I would definitely say to grade at the lowest dollar amounts because you have no incentive. Like $18 grading, that's that weird thing where I said a lot of cards that were sent at $18 are for people to sell. They're not for people to hold. But yeah, if you could sit and you could wait, no problem in waiting. Or you don't even have to grade them really. But if you want to go to that next level. So Lunchable said right below that, like you said, with supply just now, I want to sell some stuff off to pay for grading, but I don't know if I should wait it out. Yeah, $18. I wouldn't really say, again, $18 is personal collection prices. I would say $18 is definitely like more as a seller price. There's a lot of opportunities there to sell cards at $18. It's not really there as personal collection pieces. That's just my personal opinion. Let's see. Mason Berry said the alt art could be Lugia taking a dump and it would sell. So Mason would know. He sees more people coming in for, particular characters. So he would definitely be way more like in the know of what the Lugia buyer market is like. But I would be interested in his opinion where he would rank Lugia. Like when people are coming in, is that one of the very first cards people go after? And again, I still put Lugia in the top 10 of cards or Pokemon. People hear me say, I don't think a Lugia Altart it will be the end all be all, but it's still in my top 10, but people will ignore me saying it's in my top 10. So Felipe De Sosa, see you in the chat. Good to see you, bud. Let's see. Jump right to the bottom again. Lunchables connoisseur said he bought everything like 70 years ago, so he's in no rush. Yeah, so if you're in no rush, man, take your time. Yeah, a lot of people are giving him kind of the same advice I said, is just kind of wait. So that money well said, he thinks the next tier will be $12 per card. $12 will open up a lot of stuff. I think $12 gets really close to the cards where if you mess up and you can still get $19.99 for that card sold, you can still break even or make a little bit of money on the lowest of ends, which like $12 per card definitely brings back that what is Z&G Emporium say, never punished, like $12 grading. It's at this time, depending on what you're sending, it can be really hard to be punished for some cards at $12. Now, some people will go out of their way and, start grading like, here's my non-hollow common from some random Sun and Moon set that's a million of them out there, and I'll grade it and I'll hit a PSA 8 because there's some kind of weird binder ding in it, or maybe a 6 in it because it has a weird binder ding, and then they'll get beat up. Sure, there's always outliers there, but at $12, it is harder to find a PSA graded card that sells for less than $12 than it is to find a card that sells for greater than $12. Again, you can definitely do your best to challenge that thought process there. But so don't challenge it too hard, but $12 is still a very forgiving price at the current market. Let's see. Master Trainer Ryan said, let's see. A lot of people are just talking about like sending cards away in the chat right now. Tap Rock Bang said, where are you finding Evolving for $40 or $140? It's selling like hotcakes on TCG for $160 plus. Tap Rock Bang, if you go on eBay right now as we speak, type in Evolving Skies booster box, find P Football Pete. He is currently should be the sponsored seller, and I think he's selling them at like 143 right now. I think he has like 1,000 sold with 3,000 available. So if you are looking at them for 140 right now, you could go on eBay as we speak. And just to make sure that I'm not incorrect, I will pull up the listing for you right now to make sure. So Evolving Skies booster box. So let's see. Oh, look at that. He already increased his prices. Nope, that's not him. So I looked at these booster boxes the other day, and it looks like he might have sold out on them. So the lowest price I'm seeing right now on eBay is $152.95. So that's interesting. They were selling at 144 yesterday. That's how quick this market is moving. That's ridiculous. Yeah. So Trap Rock Bang is right. They are selling. So right now, the lowest buy it now price on eBay is 152. At least that's what I saw. I didn't see P Football Pete, so that's interesting. So Tap Rock, you are correct today, but yesterday it was 140s. That money well says, if Evolving Skies reprint, I'm screwed because I'm not paying 130 to 140. 110 is a good price, yeah. Retro Spec said, stop outbidding him on Skyridge reverses. Nah, it's probably not me. Let's see. Mason Berry said, Lost Origin has the best trainer gallery. That is definitely possible. I think that VMAX Pikachu with red is going to be a very expensive trainer card, especially that it's going to be a full art, it's going to be a textured card. I think people are really going to stock out on that card. I think it'll be interested when you start to see trainer cards or trainer gallery cards crack that $100 mark. And I think that Pikachu will probably it depends on pull rates for that card too. Like that is definitely a huge caveat. I'll be very interested to see where that, like, even some of the really good trainer cards, I can't think of any off the top of my head that have cracked $100. So it'll be interesting if that card is able to be the first one to do that. But if the supply is absolutely crazy for that and tons of people are pulling them, they'll probably settle down to maybe like, where's like the Umbreon character rare card from Brilliant Stars? Like, what is that, like $30 to $40 a card? Like, if we see that sort of supply, it will probably maybe fall around that price. Maybe it'll be hard to say. Let's see. Somebody said, so Cheval says Lugia is minimum top 5. So his top 5 is Pikachu, Zard, Rayquaza, Lugia, Mew. That's an interesting top 5. I wonder what my top 5 would be. So Raichu, Pikachu, Charizard, probably. I hate to put Charizard because I feel like it's just like an obvious play, but I feel like it's got to be in there. I like a lot of Mewtwo cards. He said Mew. Mew's definitely up there. That's interesting. I like a lot of the legendary birds. Like, I think I would put like, that's tough. Zapdos would be in my top 10. I don't know like the actual placement it would be. I don't even want to start doing top 10 Pokemon, man. I'll go back and forth all day. I would say you definitely have to have an evolution in there. But Jolteon's my favorite evolution. But I really like Umbreon. I really like Espeon too. Definitely like Umbreon over Espeon. But they're up there. But I wouldn't want to have like 3 evolutions because that's stupid. I love a lot of Gyarados cards. Like, I love like the red, Gold Star Gyarados. Obviously, like the Shining Gyarados, which is probably everybody's favorite artwork for Gyarados. I love, yeah. Even like modern Gyaradoses I like. Like what was the full art one where he's popping out the boat? What set is that? I'm gonna say Lost Origins. Lost Origins didn't even come out. Sure, somebody it's the XY set. Breakpoint? No. Ancient Origins. See, there you go. That the Gyarados from Ancient Origins. I love that card. Couldn't even think about it at first. Yeah, there's a lot of good ones. Northwood said Lugia's top 10 all day for him. Now people are talking about Lunchables. Thrifty TCG said Nacho's Lunchables are OP. Let's see. Oh, sorry. I don't know why it just jumps to the bottom. Be interesting to go like a top 10 list of my favorite Pokemon or just top 10 best Pokemon. Or even, I think you would have different lists. And I think Cheval's put it a good way. He was saying not his top 5, but true top 5 in popularity. I think that's possible. I think it's one list is your top 10. Another list is the hobby's top 10. And then another list would be for like the actual TCG and Pokemon trading card game, like top 5 from collectible and what are people willing to buy? What do people really want the most? And I think the market has really cemented himself with like the number 1, number 2 cards people are willing to way overpay for. But then it boils down to some rarity and scarcity too. And it's hard too because some Pokemon just got really lucky and they got on some really good cards. I'll give you an example, like 97 number 1, number 2, number 3 Pika trophies. If that was number 1, number 2, number 3 Charizard trophies and it was a Charizard instead of Pikachu, like those cards would still be just as valuable and just happen to be Pikachu on there and not Charizard or Squirtle or Bulbasaur or whatever. Mason said PK with some dark horse picks. Yeah, because I was going with my top 5. Pokemon Classics with the Farfetch'd. I do love base set Farfetch'd with like I never knew what was in the background of him. I always thought it was like a map and then it was just super blurry, but come to find out that it was just like crappy watercolors, like stock photo. I always thought like that Farfetch from base set was just like, again, like a map, but it was super blurry in the background, but it wasn't. I was always super disappointed when I found out what the original stock background looked like for that. Ooh, somebody said Togepi. Togepi is great artwork. Best Togepi artwork isn't even Togepi card. Light Jolteon with the Togepi in the center, and then with the Rattata in the background. That is a great Togepi artwork. So Sean Harris put Cinderace has made it into his top 5, a Gen 8 starter Cinderace. Like obviously like the evolution, but or not evolution, but still made it to the top 5. That is interesting. I would say Score Bunny is probably most people's number 1 for Gen 8 starter. I would say it probably goes Score Bunny number 1, Sobble number 2, and Grookey is probably most people's number 3. And I think it would be hard to press to find people that like Rillaboom over Cinderace. So, but I do like Inteleon, so Cinderace and Inteleon, it would be a very close matchup there. I'd be interested to see what people prefer, but Cinderace is a very interesting pick. Somebody said Victory Bell is one of his favorite. Wow. Northwood's TCG's his top 5. Flareon, Jolteon, Mewtwo, Charizard, Lugia. So he had Lugia, but he had 2 evolutions in his top 5. Interesting. Card Mover said, do you have any cards that are not part of set/pack pull? Just curious because this is what I started collecting. Do I have cards that are not part of sets or pack pulled? What do you mean by that? All cards are part of sets, and all cards were at one point pack pulled, unless you're asking like trophy cards. Are you asking trophy cards? Or are you asking like, what are you asking there? I'm very interested by that. Let's see. Pro tip. Never get a Lunchable with the Oreos. Then you get chocolate dust all over your fake meat cheese. So Mason said, if you ever have free time, takes a while, but this is Pokemon favorite picker. It's pretty good. Interesting. See, some people came from Radar, so that's cool. But I made it to the bottom of the chat. I told you guys, that's my goal. And a lot of people gave me crap for not reading the chat, so I've gone out of my way every single live since I've got that comment to read all the comments in the chat, and I've done that. But yeah, I just wanted to do a quick video. I just been so busy with real life stuff that it's so hard sometimes to just take like an hour or 2 out of my day, make a video. And I'm glad I did today. I just like hanging out with you guys. It's always a lot of fun. And I got some guests coming on in the near term. Some people that have been on in the past, some people that have never been on at all. So that would be interesting to see those. One person I'm still trying to reach out to, hoping they come on, and there's actually a pretty cool backstory with that person. And I'm hoping we get to showcase that. I know that was very cryptic, but otherwise, guys, do me one favor before you leave. Just smash that like button on your way out, and I'll catch you guys all in the next video.